Sound effects of the market just closing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't met me before, I'm Cinnamon. I am a U.S. immigrant who moved out of the U.S. 4.5 years ago. I reside in Lisbon, Portugal. And I have a special guest with me today. So basically, today, what we're here to have a discussion about is if you are thinking about moving abroad, and particularly if you're considering moving to Europe or any other country where the currency tends to be more than the USD and you're not earning income in said currency. Okay, so we're going to talk about some things to consider for those of you who have not left the United States first. And we're going to talk about some things to consider if you currently live in Europe. Okay, especially if you live in Portugal, I can give some insight there. And my guests can give you some insight in a variety of other places. So, again, thank you everyone for joining me. I want to introduce you to my guest, Candace. Candace, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Hey,
do-
everybody.
I am doing well. So, Candace, please tell our viewers who have not met you before, where are you from?
I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised. Honorary Floridian because I lived in Florida for many, many years. And I am an American immigrant currently living in Istanbul, Turkey.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And what brought you to Istanbul? How did you pick your current location?
Oh, that is really interesting because I always say Istanbul kind of chose me. I was actually living in Rome, Italy at the time. And I decided to take what was supposed to be a 10-day trip to Istanbul. I left Rome February 28th, 2020. And I want to say about 3 or 4 days into my trip, I received a text message from the Turkish government saying that all flights to and from Italy have been canceled due to COVID. And I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be interesting. Looks like I'm going to be in Istanbul for an undetermined amount of time. And here I am 4 years later, almost 4 years later in Istanbul. And so that's how I ended up in Turkey.
And so, of course, you lived in Italy before, so this is not your first time moving abroad. What made you leave the US?
I think there were like a variety of factors that made me want to leave the U.S. I prior to that I had actually lived in Puerto Rico with my ex husband because my ex husband's Puerto Rican, and I had lived in Puerto Rico with him. And at that time, I didn't know what an expat was because that was kind of like pre smartphone, social media, etc. Um, but when after our divorce, I started doing a lot more traveling, and I did a lot more transatlantic travel. And I remember the thought first hit me when I went to Paris. I was like, "Oh, this is my vibe." I mean, people are drinking wine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is what's up, you know. I was like, "Okay, these are my people." Um, and then just so happened, I had traveled to Spain a few times, and I did a sabbatical in Spain. Came back, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to try to move to Spain, but just so happened I had another trip to Rome planned. So I went to Rome with my friend, and I absolutely fell in love with the city. And I turned to her. I said, "Okay, I'm moving here, girl. I'm moving here." And the reasons that I decided to leave the U.S. and it was that deciding moment was really the lifestyle. I was so stressed out. I was extremely lonely. I think that was a big part of it. Loneliness, feeling isolated, consumed by work culture. I was just really tired of it and I needed a different energy in my life. And Rome provided that. The Italian lifestyle, especially central and southern Italy, people prioritize interpersonal relationships. There's time carved out for family. And having a daughter, that was very important. I needed also to feel safe. Uh, those were some of the main factors for me deciding to leave the US.
And so, tell me about your daughter. You didn't just move to Italy by yourself, you moved with your daughter. Talk about that.
Yes, I moved to Italy with my daughter and two dogs. And my daughter is autistic and she has cerebral palsy. So she has a mild form of cerebral palsy and she has a mild, she's on the autism spectrum, and I have world schooled slash homeschooled her for years. But I needed to be someplace where I felt like she could also thrive, um, and she could also enjoy. And what I really loved about our time in Italy was the fact that it was extremely safe. When you look at Rome and you compare it to maybe other major cities with a high population, I mean, Rome has a population of about 7 million people, 6 or 7 million people. Um, it, it's safe. You can go out at night and you're not looking over your shoulder and all paranoid and everything. And I could allow my daughter to go out by herself, um, go to a cafe. We got a chance to know the people in our neighborhood. And it was just a really beautiful experience for both of us.
I love it. And thank you all for joining. Hey, James, Essence, KH, Blacksit, what's going on? Jess, good to see you all. Thanks for joining us live. So you had to include your daughter. You included your daughter. And how did you go about even researching what you needed to do to be legal in this country for you and your daughter?
Okay, so my journey to Rome really was a whirlwind experience because literally I was like, I'm moving here. Everybody thought I was crazy. And I want to say 8 weeks later, I was back in Rome. So I had to quickly decide which visa program was going to be suitable for not only myself, but for my daughter. I had to find out what documents I needed to get up front to apply for the visa, where I needed to apply for the visa, how to set up the visa appointment at the embassy, um, all of those things. I had to find an apartment because I think what a lot of people don't know is for you to get approved for a long term visa, 9 times out of 10, they are going to require that you already have a place to live, which can be risky. That can be a risky move because you have to go to a landlord, find an apartment, let them know the situation. So that's exactly what I did. I found a real estate agent. We went around to some apartments. Mind you, this was in my broken Italian and Spanish, mind you. And trying to find an apartment, found a really great apartment, got a lease. I told the landlord, listen, I need this lease because they won't give me the visa to come back if I don't have this lease. Luckily, I had a really amazing landlady. She signed the lease. And so when I left, I had everything I needed to fulfill all the document requirements for getting a visa for both myself and my daughter. And for any of you out there that are wondering what that visa was, it was a student visa to study Italian at a state or countrywide or nationwide recognized school. I'm not sure they're doing that anymore for a whole year, but that's how we were able to stay in Italy.
And how has moving abroad changed your perspective on life?
Oh, it's changed absolutely everything about my life. From just, I think one of the biggest changes is just my nervous system is relaxed. That's number one. Two, I have a high priority and focus on interpersonal relationships. I don't beat myself up anymore for not working hard. Um, just the ease and peace of mind that I have having access to quality health care, and then just being enriched and having a worldview, and also just the cultural exchange, being able to exchange my culture. I'm Afro American, so just being able to exchange cultures and show people what our culture is all about, what my culture is all about, and how we contribute to each other's space in a very beautiful way.
I love it. And what advice would you give for those individuals who, because I think for both you and I, it was a transition that the world was going through. Like there was a whole global shutdown. And so some things that existed when we moved Some of it doesn't exist anymore.
Right?
And a variety of things have changed, and that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. For those of you who are just joining us, thank you so much for joining us live. Again, if you have any questions whenever they pop up, if you could just put a Q in front of your question so we could differentiate between your question and just communicating with someone else in the chat. And Candace and I wanted to come together because we were seeing just a couple things that were occurring. I could probably speak for both of us that moving out of the U.S. was necessary at that time, and so one of the best decisions I felt like that I've made. But there are also some other things to consider that is going on globally with the world. Okay, and we want to discuss that so that if you if you decide to move, that you've taken the time to consider all aspects so that you won't be out here in an international situation with less support than you would have if you were in the US, and just in a bad way. Like, we don't want that. So ask us all the questions that you have because we're going to talk about it. And this is not going to be the fluffy, oh my God, life is great. Now, granted, it is, but there's also some very real world practicality things that are going to exist that are far outside of, oh, you just moved to a new country. After that nuance fades, there's still real life stuff you're going to have to live, and you want to know about that.
Real life stuff that happens. Yeah.
Speaking of real life, so what are some of the things, if someone were to move now, particularly in Europe, what are some things you feel like they should consider from your experience in Turkey and your experience in Italy?
Um, you have to consider number one, the currency conversion. I think that's really important, and just kind of budgeting out for that, because I know in Rome I did it. I was so caught up in my honeymoon phase. I was just all into, like, 10 toes deep into into my honeymoon phase of living abroad, that I didn't even think about anything. And when I actually started calculating how much I was spending monthly on Uber and taxis, y'all, it was more than my car note. It was like I was spending 600 to 700 euro, no, US dollars per month. And I was like, ooh, I was like, let me stop this. I was like, okay, we're gonna have to start walking, and we're gonna have to start taking the metro a lot more. So I think considering the little costs that add up, I think where you're going to live in the city, whether you're going to live in the city center, if you're going to live a little bit further out from the city, and what that's going to mean in terms of like transportation, those are some things that you need to also consider. And then you need to consider, obviously, things outside of, like you and I were talking, Cinnamon, outside of the rent, outside of, your utilities, etc. You need to consider whether you're going to have private insurance or or use a public system if you are in a country that has public health care, and also the private sector. If you get private, which I do get private insurance, how much that's going to cost. Of course, it is going to be significantly less in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness it is. But there's still a cost that you need to consider. Um, I'm trying to see what else, like, and just how you're going to make it sustainable for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, how are you going to make this journey sustainable for yourself? Because
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake that a lot of Americans think is that they are going to fly to somebody else's country and get a job.
Yes. Yes.
That it's rare. I will put it like that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's rare. Thinking that you're going to come someplace like Italy and teach English, and that's going to be sustainable, no way. You'll, at most, because the market is so oversaturated in so many places, you'll at best might be making €9, maybe €10 an hour, and that's not going to be enough to sustain you abroad. So you really have to consider things like that.
And for those of you who have not left the country yet, this is the time that you create your plan, right? Like you create what exactly you're going to do. Don't wait to come to the country to start getting your clientele up. Many of you know I'm a business owner, but if you are going to freelance or whatever, do not wait until you get to the country to start to build your clientele. Please start your plan now and do that. If you only have one source of income, I really don't recommend. And if your source of income is only the US, it's not retirement income, it is earned income, which means you are taxed higher in most countries on earned income. Retirement income is taxed differently, and you have to make sure that you're in a country in which the taxing is favorable. But in the case, even in the United States earned income is taxed the highest. So if your only income is earned income and you move to a country that can change the tax regulation for immigrants at any moment, as many of you may know, Portugal has done that. They can change the tax situation at any moment, and then you're left with just that income. Do you understand what I'm saying? So make sure in your plan that you are creating something like that, particularly if you are moving to a country and you are earning USD and your expenses are in euros. And I always get this argument, which you probably hear Candace office, like, okay, well, the housing is cheaper outside of US. Yes, but there are parts of the US you can move and it'd be cheaper than various parts of Europe. And the healthcare cost, of course, is cheaper. However, that is not all your cost when you live. You still have to buy, if you're getting an apartment, you still have to buy furniture. It's
Yep.
in euros, and is if not more expensive in Europe than it is in the United States, and you're paying it in euros. There is a fee to get your USD to Europe. Now, even if you have a charge swap account or whatever, and they don't charge international fees, the banks are now charging to accept wires, which that I swear that wasn't the case for me when I first came. I realized I feel like that is a fee.
Doing that this year. They
Thank
just
you. So it's not just me. It's
no,
not
they
just me.
did
I'm
this year.
I'm so glad you confirmed that, because I'm like, I know that they were not charging me. I've been wiring money for 4 years now, and I had never got charged to receive money in my bank, and now my bank is charging me. And when I went to said bank and asked them, like, listen, are y'all charging me now? Like, what is going on? And if this is going to continue to go on, we need to look into a new product. No one contacted me back
Yeah.
at a bank. No
Yeah.
one contacted me back. So this is the kind of things that we want you to consider in regards to financial. Please look into securing your clients if you're self-employed. Securing your clients before you leave. Do not leave with just one source of income. I don't personally recommend that. What do you say on that, Candace?
I don't I don't recommend it either. Um, Even if you're living in the States, you shouldn't have one new source of income. I don't believe anybody should have one source of income if you want to build a certain level of security and wealth for yourself. So no matter where you are, you should definitely be striving for more than one stream of income. Now, if you don't have, I do think that you can move abroad with one source of income, but you need to just make sure that's going to be sustainable, and then immediately make sure that you have a plan that's going to be working towards another stream of income that does not necessarily require your time to create that money. That that is that is absolutely key. I also want to say another cost, sentiment that a lot of people don't think about either, and this is specifically for those of you who want to move abroad with your children. You need to decide if your kids are going to attend the public school or private school, because some of these schools, these educational systems out here are not good. I know America has like a bad rap for public school education, but trust me, there are worse public school systems on the planet. And so you need to kind of do your research to see if the public school is going to work for your child, or if you're going to homeschool. You need to decide if you need to figure out if homeschool is going to be legal in the country that you're going to be moving to, as well as if you're going to do private school, the quality of private school and the cost, because some of that's an additional cost that you might have to factor in.
No, that's a good point. And a lot of the private schools, I know some of the ones in Portugal, you spending some money. Like
Yeah,
you can easily spend $15,000 to $20,000 in a private school. Oh, no, excuse me, not dollars, euros.
yeah,
You can easily spend 15 to 20,000 euros per year in private schools here in Portugal. So that is also something you want to take into account and just really think this through. This is not about trying to push anyone away from. If you want to move out of the country, we get it. We had to go, right? We get it. We just want you to do this in a way that you will be most successful. If you plan this out, particularly the financial aspects, and plan this out, and let's not forget, the world is going through a global recession.
yes.
If in your mind you don't that you haven't picked up on that, moving abroad is probably not what you should be doing right now if you haven't been able to process that just on various forms of economic data. And I think what a lot of Americans, if they do leave the country, they tend to go to countries initially, even when vacationing, in which the USD is worth more. And so
Right.
when you start looking at Switzerland, various parts of Europe, and all of that, you got to rework how you looking at currency. And if you're the type of person who never even paid attention to currency, yet you're moving to a country where you're not earning their currency and it's worth higher than USD, it is going to be a problem, particularly if you only have one source of income.
Right.
If you're talking about cost savings, once you take into account for my earned income folks, not my retirement folks, for my earned income folks, we're talking about taxes and we're talking about the just having one form of income. If anything changes, you are now in a country, and if you're this can happen right in front of your immigration meeting, right? So if something happens in regards to your immigration meeting, you have to show pay stubs that you could afford to be there, and they have to be
Absolutely.
current.
They do. Absolutely, they do. And I want to kind of touch on that. That one of the reasons why I decided to stay in Turkey during the lockdown, the COVID times, was because of the currency conversion. Because I was like, ooh, I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on in the world right now, and if this is going to last some length of time, then I would prefer to be where my U.S. dollar is going to go further than to try to get back to Rome and where I know it's going to be more expensive. So I actually did, stay in Turkey for financial reasons as well, and I ended up buying property there. Um, but now the situation has changed because, like you said, there's a global recession. So a lot of prices have gone up. Before, what was going on before was you could rent in a very nice neighborhood in Istanbul. You could rent like a 3 bedroom apartment for like $700-800 a month. That is not the case now. And what is happening now is there's a lot of abuse from landlords trying to overcharge everyone, but in particular foreigners, and wanting those same apartments now. They're asking 2-3 thousand US dollars a month for, and I'm like, I am not about to pay $3,000 for an apartment in Turkey. I'm sorry, I'm just not doing it. No way, no how. So, and then the price of food has gone up. Even before I left to come to Sicily, because I'm in Sicily right now, my friend and I went out for coffee, and we were paying European prices for that coffee. And we were like, okay, whoa. So that got me to actually thinking, I'm like, okay, I don't know when this economy is going to level out. And even if it does, the prices are not going to go back to what they were. But if I'm going to be paying European prices, and I want to live in Europe where I get like all the perks and the European amenities. So at this time, I am kind of looking for a second home hub outside of Turkey. But you absolutely do need to consider the currency conversions, where you're going to be at. I do think that there's are still some places where you can leverage your US dollar, but you do need to consider all of the costs outside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even here in Portugal, if you go out to dinner, it's US prices. In fact, it's more expensive than US because you're paying it in euros. So, and this is relatively new. You guys, if if you haven't met me before, hey, I'm Cinnamon, and I've been living in Portugal for going on 4.5 years, and the prices have skyrocketed. Right, the grocery store. I mean, granted, if you're comparing it to the U.S., grocery prices are cheaper, but if you are trying to entertain, the prices are higher for entertainment and food and that type of thing. And when I say food, I mean dining out, not at the grocery store. So it is equivalent. If you are going out to dinner, it is equivalent, and sometimes it's less food. It's different. It is absolutely different. And there's going to be this process where you move from being an expat to an actual immigrant, right? And
Yeah.
so what that means is you're going to be living your life more like a person who's part of the fabric of the country, and that's, you're not doing the Airbnbs and the various things you were doing when you just didn't know yet, right? So when you move into that immigrant life and you're getting utilities in the country and you're buying furniture in the country and you're doing all of those things, there's there's an extended amount of cost, and it's in euros. And again, I just want people to be aware and be clear that things are changing. I know in the US people are feeling the chokehold, but it doesn't mean that the chokehold of financial things are changing just in the US. It's changing globally. So you can run into the problem where you move, and this has happened to many people, and your immigration meeting is coming up and you haven't found an apartment yet. And there have been people who've had to commit to an exorbitant amount of rent just because they are getting ready to have their immigration meeting, and they commit to this apartment that no way in the world should it cost that much, but they have to pay it because they have to stay within their immigration. So, yeah.
And on top of that, to that point, need to let people know that sometimes they will require you, landlords in different countries will require you to pay sometimes 6 to 12 months of rent in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah.
In Europe, is I've never heard of in the European Union of anybody requiring 12 months of rent in advance. But definitely in Turkey, Turkish landlords are asking foreigners to pay upwards of 12 months of rent in advance, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not doing that. No way.
So I'll tell my story. So those of you know, I moved into the apartment that I'm in now about a year and some months ago, and sadly, I paid we paid 12 months up front. And it was not intentional. I was bothered that that had to happen, but it was a rental war. Like it was me or someone else. And they offered 10 months, and then we're like, okay, I guess we're going with 12. So between me and my partner, we were really sick about the whole thing, right? Like just to have the money sit there. But here's what we learned end up working out. We were locked into the euro rate at the time we did our lease. And that has made a huge difference financially versus, continuously transferring money every month versus being locked into the currency of the US dollar to the euro at that moment. And that was a benefit we didn't consider. I was still irritated that that's what we had to do is pay 12 months. But now it's almost like that's what's done now, because I have no idea what's going to happen with the U.S. economy. And if you've been rocking with me, at least for the past month, I've been throwing all types of warnings. And I'm just saying that because if you look at history, granted, I trade. So I don't trade currency, but I'm very, very familiar of what happened in the Great Recession of 2008. And if you look at the currency, the USD to the euro at that moment, it was high. And later on, I could show you a chart just for anyone who hasn't seen it. So that is just like, okay, just to lock in, because we don't know what this the US is in the highest debt it has ever been in the history of the country.
Yeah.
Okay. The highest debt it has ever been in. And our debt comes from various countries, also other countries that are having their own financial issues. So what does it look like if somebody tells the U.S., hey, yo, give me my money? I have no idea what that looks like. But I'm assuming what it does happen is it affects our currency.
Correct.
So Although what you end up finding out is doing the year or 6 months or whatever up front does lock you in to a fluctuating dollar security a little bit. And that was learned on accident. But I was one of those people that had to come up off it up front. And this is in Portugal. Okay, this is in Portugal. And
Uh,
so it made my stomach hurt for a while because here you are. And on one hand, I'm like, okay, so you're throwing this lump sum of money and you're not getting any investment potential off of it. That's how I was looking at it initially. But then I looked at it like, oh no, this is locking what the euro is to the USD when we did it. And that saves the money. So if you can, I'm not even going to advise to do that. I don't know. I don't know. That's just what the plan has been.
Cinnamon, like people just people aren't prepared to usually pay that much of rent in advance. That's not even the normal thing, especially for Americans. American culture, you pay first last month's rent and a deposit, a security deposit. That's the norm. I got lucky in Rome because um, I she only asked for 3 months of rent in advance, and she was very kind. And then we paid month to month like that, and I just automatically transferred the money to her. But that's not always the case. So letting people know, like you might have to budget out 6 months, maybe possibly 12 months of rent just so you can get your visa. That is a real possibility. And I know a lot of other people, well, a few other people rather, that were in the same situation as yours, where, or that you mentioned, where they were like, okay, I just need to get my visa. So I'm just going to pay this amount for this apartment, even though I know they're overcharging me, but I really want to stay here. So just kind of like be warned and understand you might have to budget out for 6 months or negotiate somewhere around there.
Absolutely. And we're going to start taking some of your questions. So, Jess, what grade is your daughter and do you still homeschool? Is she learning Turkish and how is that?
So my daughter is in her last years of school. She's actually older, and because she has a disability, her grades, where she is grade wise, is actually different in various subjects. But at any rate, what we started out doing is we started out doing a Florida virtual school, and then I kind of shifted to becoming a full time homeschool, and we just do various curriculum at different levels depending on what the subject is. My daughter speaks 5 languages at this point at
Nice.
at various levels. She speaks Spanish, Italian, Japanese, obviously English. That's her first language, and she is learning Turkish. Turkish is very difficult, and actually, we were considering since we're considering leaving Turkey, we're actually considering dropping Turkish because she's starting to get language confusion. She is starting to experience language confusion, and I feel like it would be just better for her to just drop the language that she really won't be using that often. But yes.
Perfect. And so Ree Bloom says with the both the Turkish and Italian political climate turning right, how does that affect you?
That that's really interesting. I have to kind of tread those waters real carefully when I speak about Turkey because Turkey does not really have like freedom of speech. I will say this: some of the policies that they have regarding immigration in particular have affected me directly, which has led me to the place where I am now, where I'm considering a second option outside of Turkey. They have made it extremely difficult to immigrate to Turkey. So whereas they were giving away their extended long term tourist visas like candy, they're not doing that anymore. Even their work visas now, they made recent changes. I want to say a few months ago, where even for you to get a work permit, the employer has to prove that a Turkish person cannot do that job in order for an order to be hired and get a work permit. Now, I totally get it. I totally understand because every country's duty is to its citizens. and you should always be putting, your own oxygen mask on first. So I understand where it's coming from, but I think what's happening is that it is affecting some of the higher quality immigrants that would be really adding value to the country. They've made a ton of changes in terms of um, property investments there. So now, the when I came, the law was a foreigner could buy property or land of any amount, and you could get property ownership residency. They have now changed that as of last week, that the minimum amount required for your real estate purchase has to be 200,000 US dollars or more
Oh.
in order to qualify for property ownership residency. And in fact, this year I had a situation at immigration where they downgraded us. We
Mm.
were supposed to be grandfathered in, but
Mm-hmm.
they downgraded us from property ownership visa to tourist visa, and that scared me so bad.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I felt so vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
because my whole purpose for buying the property was to secure a little bit of to have some security,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
have our visa in place. So I'm working now with an attorney, and hopefully I can get that situation taken care of. But that's the situation with Turkey. As far as Italy is concerned, I haven't really noticed too much with in terms of Italy. I know that um, a lot of people have had been speaking about the political changes in Italy, but in terms of how I'm treated, in terms of things like that, it's been normal. And I know Italy is one of those places where people either love it or hate it. Some people, especially amongst black travelers, is one of those spots where people either love it or they're just like it's racist. I will have to say, in the 5 6 years that I have lived there and traveled there, I have never had any bad experience ever in terms of me being mistreated because I am a black person, especially because they're more national. Not it's about where you're from, really. So personally, I haven't had any problems.
And guys, if you are finding this helpful, if you can give us a thumbs up, this will help people who need to see this to see it. So if this is helpful and you're getting good information for it, please considering liking the video. So I've been mostly stuck on the figuring out how to earn income while living in Italy. Can you speak to how you manage this aspect, if not too personal? Live off savings or freelance?
Okay, in my case, my situation was unique, so I don't like to, I like to have full disclosure. I was a business owner in the US at the time that I left, and I did have my savings. I also had a home that I was able to rent out while I was not there. So my financial situation is really different from most people because I had kind of like that cushion, and also I've been investing since I was like 20 years old. um, so my financial situation was completely different. I had by the time I moved to Italy, I already had like 5 streams of income already. But what I can say is that what I would do in terms of trying to create another stream of income for yourself, I can speak on that. What I would do is I would try to look to any kind of problems that you could solve that are in direct correlation to any talents or knowledge that you already have. And then I would try to create an income stream around that. I would also look into AI. That's very popular, and there are many ways that you can utilize AI to make money. There are also trainings that you can take in order to learn how to utilize that. My friend Sheila, she does some training courses that are very useful. So I would say make yourself marketable, learn a different skill if you need to, in order to create a different path for yourself financially. And for me, investing in myself always ended up paying off in the long run in terms of creating additional streams of income. So I hope that helps.
No, I love that. And for those of you, y'all know I'm doing some business training every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's completely free. We're talking about business. So the disadvantage is that both myself and Candace are our business owners. So in regards to how to get a job and live out of the country, we don't have that resource for you. However, if you are still in the U.S., this is where you build your business in the U.S. I'm finding too many people trying to build it after they leave, and it's more difficult. You may have situations where clients want to meet you. You may have a whole bunch. So build your clientele, deliver good service to them then so that they don't even care what country you're in afterwards, because you've already produced results for them. But it's going to be significantly more difficult if you don't lay out that foundation before you go, in my opinion. So please start to think about, you see a problem in the market, how are you going to solve it, and create your marketing message so that anyone who sees it can understand what problem you're solving. If you don't understand who your target market is or whose problem you can solve, it's going to be a struggle. So do this in an area that is familiar with you, that you're familiar with, because I think people downplay the stresses that come with moving abroad, right? It's not that it's impossible, but you're learning a new language. You're learning how to take the metro. You're finding out grocery store. You're doing a lot. And to have to do that and still not have secured what you will do for income is in my opinion, it's got to be a scary way to live. And that's not what we want for you here, you know?
So I did want to kind of interject the fact that
Sure.
my company, Her Expat Life, we do offer headhunting services for we work particularly with women who want to live, work, travel abroad. And so we have headhunters that will help you find primarily remote work or other work abroad. So companies abroad. So if you are interested in, working remotely or finding a job abroad, Her Expat Life can help. And we have two experienced recruiters and headhunters on board.
Perfect.
Just
Love
want to
it. And just, and then the website for that is herexpatlife.com. So
yes,
be
it's
sure to check that.
herexpatlife.com.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so Black Stick Global, hey girl. And keep in mind, you may still have bills in the USD back in the States, depending on your situation. Absolutely. That is a massively good point. A lot of people, if you have kids, if you have parents that are aging, if you have any of that, and listen, you can still have some bills in the USD in addition to your lovely, phenomenal bills in euros. So definitely, definitely don't forget about that. So thanks for that insight. And Auntie Trey says, I followed your advice and my clients are flocking in. How do I know when I have enough clients? I'm drowning, trying to keep up, and I'm ready to move abroad now. Okay, so here's the thing. It really depends on what your expenses are going to be and how much you have saved up, in my opinion, right? So what you're doing is you're moving abroad in a very special financial time globally, right? So you need to figure out, and this is for everyone, you need to figure out what your I can relax number is for yourself. Like there's certain times that if you have this amount in your account, you feel okay, right? Whatever that personal amount is for you. And so from that, determining, like, you want to like really foreshadow with your clients, are they in an industry that could be affected by a recession, right? So for me, I do digital marketing. That's what my business does. And I anticipated that I was going to be affected by the recession, because in most cases, let me get that out of here. When companies are downsizing, first thing they get rid of is marketing, right? That's the first thing to go. So I've been in it long enough to kind of know that. But here's what I did not consider. I did not consider how much AI, specifically large language models, because AI has existed for like 15, 20 years, right? But it's the large language model that affected my business dramatically, right? So I didn't anticipate that part. And so now many of you know I'm in the process of just getting new skills, which I recommend anybody who can hear my voice, whatever skills you got now, you're gonna have to get some more because it's about to be it's listen, it's about to be real. So I am learning new skills and adjusting things in my business just to be in front of things. So I want you to look and see, okay, am I working in an industry? Like if you're in the travel industry, you're gonna get affected. People's discretionary income is changing already. You know what I mean? So look at your industry. If you have not looked at the trends in your industries and the numbers and how that's changing, because all of that is public, start looking now so you can prepare. And whatever your number is that makes you feel good, and you have an emergency fund and a WTF fund. Consider that. Now, if you want to move to a country where the currency, your USD, goes higher, then, you know, whenever you feel comfortable. I think this conversation is really for those individuals who happen to be considering Europe or your Switzerland's or your people when they doing francs in England, when the currency is higher. That is when you really need to sit yourself down and do some serious consideration. I don't know if I answered your question or not, Auntie Trey. I hope that was helpful. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, we are here to Candace. What university are you studying at in Turkey?
So I'm actually not studying in Turkey. I actually studied at a language school in Italy. That's where I was actually studying, and we studied at, oh my goodness, what is the name of the school? At the top of my head, I cannot remember the name of the language school, but it's one of the few language schools that are nationally approved for to approve your visa and to take foreign students for the visa in Rome. So that's where we actually studied.
Perfect. And so, Carrie James, hi. I moved to Croatia last year and so much has changed, including rent prices and availability in a short amount of time from when I started my research. Climate has changed dramatically too. Yes, there is a lot of that going on, folks. And that's really what if you've been rocking with me for a while and y'all think if Cinnamon don't stop talking about this damn currency, the reason why I keep pushing it is because a lot has changed just in the short amount of time that I've lived here. And I want people to be clear because some people are coming and they're not, I don't know if they're aware of that part. And that's not what I want for you. If you're going to move abroad and you left the stress of the US, I'm all here for that, right? But I want you to kind of be aware of what's going on so that you don't come to another country and be just as stressed out. Like that is so not what I want for anybody, right? She was saying that the landlords are doing the same in Split. They view all Americans as wealthy and overcharged. So yeah, places are getting expensive for all the same reasons, getting very difficult. Absolutely, that is true. I happen to the US too. There are benefits, other financials. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Absolutely. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Looking forward to retirement in Portugal, but in last year I've been thinking Mexico. Okay. All right. So if we don't have any questions, okay. Questions getting to, okay. Okay. All right. I think we got some. What are costs for rent? I don't even, can you be more specific about that, Jess? And of course, that's going to depend on the country. But what I will say that some may not really be aware of is the cost of maybe having to pay more up front. That's what we had to do. But also, like in Portugal, depending on the apartment that you want to see, they may want a guarantor. And what's really ironic is the guarantor, you may make more money than the guarantor, but they still want one. So that if you go leave in the country, they still have somebody. Oh, thank you, James. We appreciate that. James just gave us a super chat. Thank you. But if you leave, they want to have a guarantor in case you happen to leave, right? And as Candace just said, immigration is changing, okay? And you are an immigrant. This is immigrant life. So if things change, you got to eat that. Like that's just what it is. It's you, and sometimes that can mean more money. So what's been happening what's been happening in Portugal, many of you know that the NHR is expiring at the end of this year. And so that was a tax benefit that some used to not get double taxed, to have a lower amount of tax if you are receiving income outside of the U.S. And this is more so on earned income. And then there's some things there for people for retirement, right? So this is why this is important, because I don't feel like everyone is really understanding that this is changing. And you have to have a conversation with your CPA and your tax attorney, because we're talking about if you're going to get taxed in the U.S. and you're going to get taxed in your home country, in this case, I'm not home country, in the foreign country, in this case, Portugal, you really have to run those numbers. And that's not even adding the currency fluctuation into the account, right? So you have to determine if that even makes enough sense for you, right? And that is what a tax attorney is going to have to do. And if you are working on citizenship or permanent residency, which is the case with me, I'm working on permanent residency and citizenship, you really need to know what the tax implications are, because you can get closer to citizenship and they're like, oh, well, we didn't get the amount of taxes that we needed for year 3, 4, and 1. So come up off that money. And that's what you have to do. Now, for those of you who are not considering citizenship or permanent residency, that might be different for you. But understand, when it's like my expectation, when it's time for me to like sit and take the test and pass the language and do all that, and it's time to become a citizen, they're going to look at your tax returns. And if you've been paying what they consider an adequate amount of taxes to that country. So this is not something you want to wait till the last minute to figure that out. So yes. Did we answer your question? Okay. So yeah, Croatia is unexpected. Okay. Any more questions? I think I see you guys are talking to each other. You mentioned initial visa. Okay. All right. You mentioned that your initial visa was a student visa. I'm wondering what visa you switched over to in order to stay long term, Candace.
So the student visa actually allowed me to stay for 1 year at a time. So I was able to renew, but then I got stuck in Turkey. So I'd actually just gotten reapproved, like renewed my student visa. And I don't know how many months had passed since the renewal. I think it was definitely like it was going on 2+ years. And and I had gotten renewed, the visa renewed. And then that's when I got stuck in Turkey, and I had to try to figure out how I was going to stay there long term. So yeah, so Italy has since changed the law, so I don't think you can stay with a student visa studying Italian for 12 months anymore. I think the most you can stay is 6 months, I believe, but you have to double check. If you're staying at a university, like a 4-year university in Italy, yes, you can get a student visa to stay 1 year at a time. But for studying Italian specifically, if it's outside of one of those universities and it's at a language school, I believe now it's only 6 months. So I hope that helps.
No, it was super helpful. Thank you for that. Okay, so Nana says, Cinnamon, not AI again. You talking about AI? I know, Nana, I know everybody telling me talking about AI, but it is a real, it's real, right? Okay, so did you offering such solid advice? Oh, we appreciate that. Runaway tech girl, you're offering such solid advice. I'm honored to be listening to two bright, independent businesswomen. Thank you so much, honey. We appreciate that. Okay, let's see what we got. If USD could be problematic, how can you create income in the low? Listen, this is not what you should anticipate doing. Be real with you. Like, if you're just now joining us, Candace just said trying to get a job in another country can be a challenge. Okay, and understand you are not the only person who is probably looking for a job in there. And then if you're in Europe, there's probably a bunch of other people who speak more than English. They speak 5 languages. You are competing with people who speak 4 to 6 languages, English just being one of them. So you have to anticipate that. So for the entrepreneurs, rock out. I think you could do it again. Just secure your clients before you leave the country. And then with the portfolio of U.S. clients that you have, then you can approach European clients. Because what I found even here in Portugal, there may be some things that we do in regards to marketing or some tech things that we do in the US that they may not really employ here in Portugal. And so you can take your portfolio from one country and kind of present that to, other companies here. But you have to understand the culture of business. I think a lot of people, because America tends to be super transactional, and people will come here and they'll meet with people and they just think, oh, why can't we do business together? And they're really aggressive, and it comes off not
No,
well.
it's just multiple coffee. You have to sit down. You have to have coffee with them. You have to sit there and talk to them for 2 hours. You might have to meet at a aperitivo and have a wine with them so that they can really trust you and build a relationship with you. Because again, it, people value interpersonal relationships, and that kind of sometimes intermingles with everything in various cultures. I did want to, I wanted to respond to that person that
Sure.
asked that question. I think one, for you to be able to earn in another currency, it also depends on one, where you're located at. If you're located someplace like Turkey, and where the Turkish lira is really, the value is really low, and you are just like, okay, in order for me to get ahead, maybe I need to earn euro or US dollars. I think you need to think, what kind of experience or something like that can you create that would draw those people to where you are at? Or to kind of piggyback off of what Cinnamon said, you're going to have to really think about how to market to European clientele, and that can vary culture to culture. I remember when I was trying to do brow threading, because I had a brow threading salon in Florida, and I tried to use the same marketing techniques in Rome. It wasn't working. It wasn't working. So you have to really kind of understand the way people do business. And actually, I think the best thing would do, if the best thing to do if you're going to do that, is to find someone who can teach you the culture of business in those particular places. Which I will, I guess, shamelessly kind of plug her Expat Life. That is one of the things that we also do as well with our career coaches. So if you want to learn like business nuances and cultures, we also offer that for various countries. But that is extremely important to do.
And absolutely. And not only that, you have to understand what the taxes are in the country that you live in when you're earning income in that country, right? So you're
Yes.
taxed differently when you're earning income in this country. And so although a lot of European countries, they offer, great health care and free education, it is taxed heavily. Okay, you're paying heavy taxes on the income, and citizens are paying heavy taxes on the income they create to provide these various benefits, right? So you also have to understand that as well. And will that cover your expenses in Portugal or any other part of Europe? So there are certain countries that pay a livable wage, and so you got to look at the country if you're moving to. Does that country pay a livable wage? Because if you are getting the currency, granted it's in euros, but is it enough to now pay this rent that you've established with your once US dollar? Okay, so that's really, really important to say. And again, thank you, James, for the super chat. Really appreciate you. Appreciate you. I just learned that was a DC thing last time we went live. People was like, only people in DC, and I was like, I didn't know that was just something that we did. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to just plug in,
Sure.
or kind of touch on that again.
Sure.
One of my friends in Turkey, she's American from Boston, and she actually started a company in Turkey that caters mostly to people in the UK and the US. She has a surgery companion company where people who fly in for plastic surgery, she will sit with them during the surgery so they won't feel alone. And
Wow. That's
this started
impressive.
because Turkey is a huge hub for cosmetic surgery, especially for the UK, and especially for the East Coast of the United States. So this started off for her as a side gig, And now it's flourished into her full time job, and she's not even dependent on the local economy. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to come abroad, you have to get creative. You cannot have the mindset of just a simple 9 to 5 employee. You're going to have to really see what your talents are, see what the weak points of the country are, see if there are any industries that already draw in people that make a higher income or currency, and see maybe what you could offer to piggyback on some of those things. That's exactly what she did. And she's built her business to the point where she's the only American company in Turkey that's approved by the Ministry of Health.
Wow.
Yes, and she happens to be a Black woman. She's Ugandan American, and she's really doing her thing. So I wanted to kind of just share her story so that you all can kind of get an idea of the way you have to think.
I love it. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. If not, we'll be signing off in a bit. So, again, depending on where you are, you have to purchase your kitchen appliances, stove, refrigerator, dishwasher. That is absolutely correct. Depending on where you're located, these are also cost in euros that you will have to consider for your apartment. This isn't just for housing. So it just depends on where you are and where you're located. So, again, hopefully, this wasn't doom and gloom, but we just wanted to have a conversation with you so that you can really consider, some of the nuances and things that may pop up that if you don't know any better, you'll get there and you're like, what the hell is happening? Okay, so Rosalind, let's talk about. Okay, so Portugal has a tax treaty in the US, correct? How does the NHR affect things? So it depends if you applied for the NHR. If you needed to apply for the NHR, in my case, it didn't make sense based on how I am situated tax-wise for me specifically, right? So how it will affect each individual person is just different, which is why I'm encouraging people to, if you're already here in Portugal, you may want to talk to a CPA here in addition to a tax attorney in the United States. If you are concerned with getting permanent residency or becoming a citizen, because again, later on they can say, okay, we feel like you didn't pay us enough tax in year 1, 3, and whatever, right? And if you're trying to get citizenship, then you're gonna have to come up with all the money, right? So how it affects double taxation and things, it just really depends on how you are set up. So again, even in the United States, you can be two people and work for the same company and have a different tax situation, right? Y'all can have the same position, work for the same company, and your tax situation will be different. So it's not anything that I, myself, or Candace can answer, or anyone on the internet should answer in regards to taxes, because it just really depends. For those people who benefited from NHR, those things are changing. I personally did not do NHR because it didn't work based on the way I am structured inside of my business. I am an employee of my company, right? If that is not your case, and then depending on how you're incorporated, whether you're S Corp or C Corp or what have you, it's all going to be different, right? So the goal here is just to check with all the financial people in town to see if it will affect you. So with dual citizen, and then two, it just depends on what type of income it is, right? So if you are earned income, you can very well get taxed twice in the U.S. because the U.S. want their money and in your country in which you're a resident, right? And so what the NHR did, it had people who were using, if they qualified, it gave them a flat tax rate for their retirement income and a flat rate for any income that they earn inside of Portugal. So all of that is changing, right? So you definitely want to check that out. So I hope that was helpful. I know I didn't give you a definitive answer, but unfortunately, I can't really give answers when it relates to tax. I'm just going to send you to your people. Hey there. Okay, so let's see. With Portugal removing the NHR, do you feel that Americans specifically will no longer feel that Portugal is a valid option to move? Honestly, I think it depends on why you wanted to move to Portugal, right? So if saving taxes was your only reason, then maybe Portugal is not the best option. There's a bunch of other countries. I keep doing that. It's a bunch of other countries in Europe that offer much more of a tax advantage. So for me, I want European citizenship. Like, so everything that Portugal is going through and the changes and the things that they have happening, I'm gonna have to eat it. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because that was what my goal is. Like a lot of what Candace said. Why did your name leave? I don't. Sorry, distracted. I wanted to play safe. I wanted to get away from the culture of the work culture and the toxic culture and the violent culture of the U.S. There was a variety of reasons. And then you got to look at how difficult or easy it is to get citizenship in certain countries. And a lot of them are changing. As Candace said, a lot of them are changing in regards to how easy or how hard it's going to be to become a permanent resident or a citizen. And understand this, like we talked about, we're going through a global recession. And so when funds start getting tight, countries are going to take care of their own, which they should, right? So if they have to adjust the immigration process because there are too many immigrants coming in and for whatever reason they feel like they want to adjust, they will adjust. And as an immigrant, you got to eat that. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So being prepared financially and being prepared to pivot, like, Candace's prime example. If it's not working here, let me run. Let me find out where else we gotta be. And that's just what you have to do, and be okay with that. So it really, to answer your question, I think it really depends on why someone may have moved to Portugal. One other thing I think people need to understand, when before a lot of American came, there were a lot of people from England, and that's before Brexit, when England was part of the EU. So you didn't have to have a visa or go through any changes from England to Portugal, right? And so for people who were part of England, they were on the pounds. The pounds historically has usually always been, not always, but have been worth more than the euros. And pounds have been worth more than USD, right? So when someone's taking their pounds and coming to a country that is euros, they get a financial benefit. Okay, because they get to buy a house in a country where the weather is great and they didn't have to spend as much money. That is not the case with United States citizens. Okay, we are taking our lower value currency and going to buy something in euros. Okay, that's so it's apples and oranges. And so there has been an influx of more marketing toward Americans, because I'm not going to say fully because I can't say the truth, because of Brexit. Okay, so now that people from England now have to go through visa processes like we all did, some people are selling their homes. It's changing the structure. Okay, and so you have to be aware of these types of things, to understand, does it make sense right now for me to take my lower currency, come to another country where the currency is higher and my bills will be in the euro? So hoping this is helpful. If it is helpful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And okay, so I don't know, maybe people will find it helps or not. Okay, it's not doom and gloom, Sally. It's the state of the world. You're right, Nana. It is the state of the world. So I just want people to be prepared. Definitely consider what is going on. Okay, hey there, Dr. Newell. Okay, thank you for all that you do. Oh, we appreciate that. Hear that they proposed energy might be 40%. My daughter just moved there and is trying to get grandfather in. What do you know? I'm gonna tell you, like I tell everybody, she got to get in with a CPA immediately. I don't know about it fully because that, like I said, it doesn't apply to me, or I have never applied for it. But what I will tell you is things in Portugal happens slowly. Okay, so if you can tell her to get in with a CPA immediately, the word on the street is that a lot of CPAs aren't even accepting meetings after November. Yeah, they're not even
Oh, because of the
accepting.
holiday.
What, just because things take so long, right? So things in Portugal take long time. So it expires 2024, right? And so if you're in your grandfather, but you have to go through the process, and that process probably means you need to bring some documents. What those documents are, I don't know, but set the appointments now. Tell her to set the appointments now with the CPA here and her tax attorney in the US so that you can have, because your tax attorney is going to see your whole, they are aware of tax code in the United States, particularly as it relates to if you're living in another country. A CPA, I mean, it's your world. You do what you want. But I would recommend talking to a tax attorney versus a CPA, right? You want someone who knows tax law. Okay. And then, of course, your CPA locally here in Portugal. And then that way they can look at how are you structured? How does your income come in? And what, because you may need to change your tax structure in the United States for it to even make sense in Portugal. But we can't, unfortunately, make that call. But I will say, tell her to make an appointment almost immediately because it's late October now and November is like next week. So hope that is helpful. And thank you so much for your kind words. All right. Talk to a CPA in both countries, please. Yes, Nana, don't take tax advice from anyone on the internet. Yes, agreed. Have you considered the golden visa by property investment in Turkey? So you bought property in Turkey. So yes. But as you said,
I
if
bought,
you,
I bought Turkey, but the amount for the golden visa has been changed. So now, in order to qualify for the golden visa, and by golden visa, that means that you obtain a Turkish passport. That amount now is 400,000 US dollars. Now that is something completely different from property ownership visa. Two different programs. So they have the property ownership visa, which that new amount has been set to 200,000 US dollars, between 200,000 and 399,000 US dollars. And then to qualify for the golden visa, that's 400,000 US dollars or more. So, and like I said, at the time that we came in, the law was a foreigner who purchased a property of any amount could obtain property ownership visa, but unfortunately that has now changed.
love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jess. We appreciate your kind words, love. So as always, thank you, Cinnamon. Thank you, Candace, for your insights. Cheers. We appreciate you. Let's see what we got. What we got. Also, none of okay. This is absolutely none of NHR changes are even fully solidified. Absolutely true. It's a lot going on. It's a lot, but just be prepared because so much is happening. So much is happening. Liquid gems. Yes, you caught me live. It's later over here in Europe, so I'm usually preparing for bed, but we wanted to get this information out for you, so we appreciate that. Really quickly, what we're going to do, folks, we're going to look, and again, if you have any questions while you're here, just go ahead and put that in chat and we'll send that out we'll try to answer that for you. But I want you to briefly follow me and don't glaze over because I'm about to show you this chart. For those of you who were with me last week, we looked at the financial chart, but I want you to see something so we can get a better understanding of currency. So last week when I talked about currency, and I talked about rent and how prices change, I think there was a bit of confusion. I think people were thinking that your rent price changed. So you are going to do a contract for a lease and it's going to be a certain amount and it's going to be in euros, right? So it is the currency that is fluctuating. Okay. So I'm getting ready to show you a chart. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Jess. We really appreciate that. So I'm going to show you a chart so that it can hopefully make it make sense. So again, I don't trade currency, just stocks and options. So no stock just goes straight up and straight down, right? So there is some wave movement. Okay. So that is what currency is. It fluctuates, right? But I want you to see, thank you so much, Venus. I want you to see, I can't multitask, y'all. I'm brain fart. Sorry. Okay. All right. So here is the US dollar. I got to move this thing. Sorry, y'all. I got all types of stuff in my computer going on. So let me move this out the way. Okay, so this is the euro to the USD. Now you see this dotted line here? This is when it's not exactly on a dollar because I couldn't get my hand to be steady enough, but it's close to a dollar. This is when the USD and the euros are neck and neck, the same, right? Now, if you look at this chart is going, look at me, to 1979. All right. And so even if we look at 2008, which is right here, 2008, the last Great Recession. And so let me just do this part of the chart, okay? That's a downward trend if I ever seen one, okay? But what you're seeing is majority of the time, the euro is higher than the dollar. This is not something I'm making up. This is facts, folks. This is today's chart. Okay. And so I know people go in the comments and they assume that I'm saying one is worth more. One is worth more than the other. One being better than the other, that's somebody else's argument. But currency literally people trade it, and it's trade on what is worth more than the other. That is literally the thing. My head's in the way. So
That's
right now we're at 1.5. Is that what I'm saying? Yeah, one. Yeah. So that means right now you're losing about 5% off your money if you're converting the US dollar to the euros. This fluctuates. Do you see that? And this chart is a month chart. Okay. So this candle shows from the top to the bottom of where it opened to where it closed for that month. This hopefully is showing you the fluctuation of the currency. So all that means is things can change, and they change drastically. And all I want is for you to be aware that that's a thing, okay? Because if you're not, it can really affect you financially. So if you're not considering the tax implications, if you're not considering the currency change, and you're not putting that into your numbers in this year, U.S. is getting ready to go through an election year next year. That too can also affect currency, right? So if you look at a chart and you see what the US currency is during certain election times, listen, okay? Stuff is happening. And what I do not want for you is that because you may not have thought some things through, you are going to make a very expensive decision, and it can end up hurting you. So I don't want that to be the case. So I want you to think about that. We have a question. If people day trade in the US, what are some steps they can take to prepare for day trading while abroad? I don't understand your question. It's still the same. What do you mean? Are you talking about time? Are you talking about taxes? What are you referring to specifically? What are the steps they can take to prepare for day trading? You're going to day trade the same way. The only difference is that the market closes later in Europe than it does in the States. So give me a little bit more information if you can elaborate on that. Okay, this is clear. Who can argue with this? I know, but they still be arguing, right? Like, they still be in comments. The U.S. currency is not worse than. I'm like, all right, girl. Okay. It is what it is. Like, I could just present the information to you,
true.
but it's
Are,
up to you. Wait, what'd you say, Candace? I didn't hear you.
I said they can argue when they're in Europe, they can argue at the cash register.
That is true. Folks, we hope that this was helpful. Okay. Also, for those of you who are listening, Candace is would like people. So tell them about the app, Candace. Tell them about the website. Tell them about the app. Tell them all that good stuff, so that people can know what to do.
Sure. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am founder of Her Expat Life, which is a global mobility company that helps women who live, work, and travel abroad to advance their global lifestyle. And we are launching an app. I'm so excited about it. It is an app that is going to help connect women who live, work, and travel abroad and their ability to create community. Because one of the biggest pieces that I think is foundational for really thriving abroad is having community. And sometimes that can be hard to really do because although there are Facebook groups and things like that where you can initially go in and kind of search around, I feel like it's flawed in the sense that you don't really you still have to go through a vetting process. And sometimes that process can be just as draining as dating. So what we've done is we've created it that helps you to really uh, build your specific tribe abroad. And so if you want to be a beta tester for that, you can go to herexpatlife.com and you can sign up to be a beta tester, or you can email info@herexpatlife.com, and you can just subject heading needs to be beta tester, and you can leave your first, last name, and email address, and that way when we get ready to send out the link, I believe like next week, you can receive it, download the app, and be a beta tester for the app. But it's going to be kind of like Bumble meets OkCupid meets Internations, but for women. So I'm super excited about the launch of this app. I think it's going to be revolutionary in the way that women meet abroad. And there's a lot of cool features in the app, including your ability to plan offline activities, a lot of features for entrepreneurs, coaches, and creatives to create really unique activities and get paid through the app. So our using our app will actually be a way you can tap into our network, tap into our community, our global community, and have an additional stream of income as well. So I'm really excited about that.
I love it. Love it. So, folks, we hope that this was helpful. We're thinking about coming together one more time. For those of you who remember Christine, Christine is actually how I met Candace. She introduced us. And Christine lives in Spain. And so she has a bunch of different insight as well. So we're thinking about doing this one more time just to give people some insight and be able to ask your questions. For those of you who are interested in training for business, online business, you know I am here with you live, at least for the month of November, maybe December, for 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Local my time, which I couldn't figure out what time that was. Western, it's Western time, 6 p.m. Western time. So if you have any questions, right now we're working on your unique value proposition and creating your marketing message so that your customers will understand why they need to do business with you and pulling out your ideal client, all that other good stuff, right? So we appreciate you. Yes, I am planning proper. I love it. We love it. We love it. Okay. Is there anything else we need to say okay. Also, one other quick financial thing I wanted to say really quickly for those of you who are retiring. I do want you to, I do that again. I do want you to remember that in the last recession for 2008, retirement accounts lost about 20 to 23%. This is not something I made up. This is something you can go look up of the percentage that dropped because if your retirement account is connected to the U.S. stock market, right? So for those of you who are recently retired, you really need to sit down. Wait, I had a couple action items. You want to sit down with your tax professional, your financial planner. You want to see what funds you are currently in now, okay? And you may want to readjust, all right? So sit down with your financial planner and look at what you have. Review your investment allocations right now. Okay, don't wait till later to do that. Review it right now, particularly if you're retired, because you can end up losing a lot. It is considered a lot of money in retirement if you're getting ready to retire soon or you are retired. Okay, so please, please, please contact your financial advisor and see and check your current investment allocations. Okay, I'm not your financial advisor, any of that. So let's put those disclaimers out there, but I do recommend that you reach out to them. Now, again, if you can, please start to establish your other sources of income. If you have not moved, Venus, you're retired now, then make that call. You need to check check tomorrow, talk to your people and see what your investment allocation is. For those of you who have not moved abroad yet, really consider other sources of income outside of just earned income. So none of this happens overnight. Okay. So if you want to get into entrepreneurship, people don't just learn and love you and work with you tomorrow. So start building that now. Okay. Start doing that now. And then if you can, try your best, even if you're not moving abroad, lower your expenses, please. Okay. If you, some of the stress that America gives us is because we're working so hard that some may engage in some retail therapy to get over working so hard and all this stress. And so now you have all these things in your closet and you have all this stuff and you may have some credit card debt and some other stuff. And if you get rid of that, even that will make you, I mean, the US can be toxic, okay? So, but it's even worse when you have all this stress of bills and expenses. So, whether you are moving abroad or can't right now, just really concentrate on lowering your expenses, because if you have your expenses to non existent to low when you move abroad, it's a lot less stress. It's just a lot less stress. So, before we sign out, Candace, is there anything you want to share or say?
I think we pretty much covered it, but I just don't want anyone to take away anything we said as a negative. This is just so that you can have the best experience possible and not find yourself in a situation where you're stuck or where you're having to ask for money to fly back home to the US or anything like that. And and that I think that living abroad can be a wonderful experience. And I'm just wanting all of you to have the best experience possible.
And that's all we want. We're not trying to come with the doom and gloom, but we do want to help because we've been out here. We've seen it. We felt it. And just want you to have a really good experience, because if you're leaving the US and you want to, feel better about life, you don't want to stress, in another country and have to, deal with that. So please, take this with what you can. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, so that was it. I want to thank my guest, Candace. And again, be sure to check her out at herexpatlife.com. Please sign up to be a beta tester. Give her some insight when the app comes out. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Cinnamon, for having me. And thank you for all of you wonderful people for all of your questions and for the love you showed us. I really appreciate it.
Okay, till next time, guys. See you.